Forget about Wolverine, Cyclops, and Professor X. Today, we're looking at people with incredible superpowers who don't exist in the pages of a comic book. I'm Mike with List 25, and these are 25 real-life X-Men who will leave you in awe. But before we begin, don't forget to like, share, comment, subscribe. Click that notification bell so you don't miss out on any new content. It really helps the channel. I know, we say it a lot, but it really, really does. With that being said, to me, my X-Men. 25. The Milk Goddess. Meet Elizabeth Anderson Sierra from Oregon. She holds a Guinness World Record. And believe me, it's a strange one. Elizabeth has donated the most breast milk out of any individual on planet Earth. Over 54,000 fluid ounces. How is she able to do this? Well, it started in 2014 when she was diagnosed with hyperlactation syndrome. This makes her produce around 225 fluid ounces of mother's milk per day, compared to the average of up to 32 ounces daily. Her syndrome affects many women worldwide, but Elizabeth decided to turn a potential negative into a positive. Milk Goddess, Human Milk Factory, whatever you want to call her, Elizabeth's story is inspirational. By storing and distributing her milk instead of ditching it, she helped thirsty babies and let the world know about hyperlactation syndrome. 24. Man with the Golden Arm from Down Under. No, James Harrison from Australia doesn't have an arm made of gold. The gold part comes from the fact that his blood contains a rare antibody which fights rhesus disease. What is rhesus disease? It's where an unborn baby's blood cells are threatened by any mother with the blood type Rh negative. What happens is her immune system goes crazy and attacks the baby. Harrison's blood enabled doctors to create the anti-D injection in the late 60s after much research. His contribution helped prevent the disease, saving millions of babies. This real-life superhero showed up to donate his plasma over and over and over again, right up until he turned 81. You could say he found the experience a little draining. Sadly, Harrison passed away in 2025. 23. Snake Man. Who better to study snake venom than a snake handler? Bill Haast from New Jersey made a name for himself in the warmer climate of Miami. He founded the iconic Serpentarium there in the late 40s and milked thousands of slithering reptiles to extract the venom. Yikes. Why the heck did he do this? Well, you can actually use venom for anti-venom, so Bill's work was very important for medical science. Did he get bit? Oh, you bet. However, despite being bitten close to 200 times, he managed to fend off the deadly infection by injecting small amounts of snake goop into his bloodstream. Turns out, playing with snakes can be beneficial for your health, with Bill finally passing away at the age of 100. Just don't try this at home. 22. Musical Savant. Did you know you can gain musical abilities through banging your head? This is the story of Derek Amato from the US, who in 2006 went swimming and was never the same again. He hit the shallow end with a bad dive that saw him whacking his head and injuring his brain. There was an upside to the situation though. Derek had developed something called acquired musical savant syndrome. In short, he transformed into a musical genius, seeing compositions in his mind and playing the piano like a pro. Did he have any prior training? No. It all came down to the bump on the noggin. Of course, this was a serious situation, and Derek experienced memory loss and other challenges. He probably wouldn't have wanted to become a major musician this way, but he's been entertaining people ever since. 21. Short sleepers. How much sleep do you need each night? While doctors tend to recommend 8 hours for some people, others need less. A lot less. Having a mutated gene called ADRB1 means certain individuals sleep between 4 and 6 hours. Plus, they don't feel any negative impact from the lack of shut-eye. It's a kind of superpower, but what's behind the story? The ADRB1 gene makes a heart and brain protein called the beta-1 adrenergic receptor. When you get stressed, it regulates your system and helps you cope. However, when there's a mutation, it reduces pressure levels, meaning you don't require a solid night's sleep. They also call ADRB1 the short sleep gene. The mutation affects 4 in 100,000 people, making it pretty rare and special, just like the X-Men. 20. Lucky mutation. Cholesterol isn't always bad news for your heart. There's a group of people from a town in northern Italy who can probably eat as much pasta with cheese as they like. How come? Their bodies contain a super lucky genetic mutation that gets rid of cholesterol. The population's mutant genes mess with a specific protein that handles cholesterol. Usually this protein builds up cholesterol levels, but thanks to the mutation, it does the opposite. It's been a thing out in the town of Limone sul Garda since the 17th century, where folks have had unclogged arteries for generations. Scientists first realized they had a medical miracle on their hands in the 70s. If they can crack the code behind the mutation, experts could help people avoid heart problems. Now that really would be a superpower. 19. Miracle babies. Babies versus earthquakes. Who do you think is going to win? Surprisingly, it was the babies when a quake measuring 8.0 hit Mexico City in the mid-80s. A hospital was reduced to rubble, cutting off a collection of newborns from their families for up to 7 days. Tragically, not all the infants made it. However, in an extraordinary development, most of them survived. That's in a situation with no water or nourishment. They just lay there for about a week until rescue teams managed to reach them. This must be the ultimate example of so-called miracle babies. 18. The blind adventurer. Can a blind person climb Mount Everest? Adventurer Eric Weihenmayer already answered that question, reaching the summit in 2001. As a young man, Eric suffered from retinoschisis, a condition where his retina degenerated. He was left sightless by the time he was 13. However, his journey as an inspirational figure was only just beginning. Eric aimed high, by which I meant he went mountaineering. This extreme sports junkie reached the highest peak in all 7 continents, and he didn't stop there. He also kayaked the Colorado River, all 277 miles. 17. Half-hangit Maggie. Maggie Dickinson faced the hangman's noose in 1724. She'd been convicted of murdering her child, who was illegitimate. A big deal back then. Authorities executed her while the public watched. However, there was a shocking twist to the tale. Everyone figured she was deceased. After all, the body had been left out as a gruesome warning to wrongdoers. It was only when they were transporting her coffin that she woke up and began knocking on the lid to get out. Now you know why they called her Half-hangit Maggie. How did she survive the rope? We don't know. Some speculate the noose wasn't secured properly, while others think supernatural elements were involved. Maggie is a bona fide part of Scottish folklore, though she was also an actual person, making her an interesting mix. 16. The woman with no fear. Imagine seeing a big spider climbing a tall building and not feeling any fear. That's the situation a mystery woman named only SM is in, due to a section of her brain being super hard. Reported on in 2010, this incredible individual has a genetic condition called Urbach-Wiethe disease, which firms up her amygdala. That's the fear processing center of the brain, making SM a game changer for neuroscience. She experiences other emotions just fine, but throw a snake at her, and she won't freak out the way most people would. 15. The human computer. Who needs a computer when you have someone like Shakuntala Devi? She was born in Bangalore and rose to prominence as a child through her incredible calculating skills. Her math wizardry earned her the nickname the human computer. By 1980, her abilities were recognized worldwide when she broke the Guinness World Record for fastest human computation. Shakuntala multiplied 2 random 13-digit numbers at Imperial College in London, completing the task in 28 seconds. I don't know about you, but it gives me a headache just reading that out. While she sadly passed away in 2013, she left a legacy that inspires people to this day. 14. Master Sniffer. George Aldrich is a human sniffer dog who works for NASA. Why did a space agency hire someone with a superhuman sense of smell? Simple. They need to detect the presence of harmful chemicals and odors, ensuring astronaut safety before they go into orbit. George has been in the job since the 70s, working as a volunteer, and old age doesn't seem to have nixed his nostrils. He's known by a few titles, including the Master Sniffer and Nostradamus. George calls himself a nasal knot, which is a pretty good X-Men name. George's superhero status was even acknowledged by the late Stan Lee. He appeared on Lee's TV show Superhumans, which showcased his talents with all things smelly. 13. Ultra Runners. Members of the Native American Tarahumara from northern Mexico excel at long-distance running. They can cover a maximum distance of 100 miles a day, which is something they started doing out of necessity due to their remote location. They run without the need for expensive sneakers, thanks to the way they move. These so-called ultra runners are pretty light on their feet, saving wear and tear on their bodies over such long distances. There's also a Tarahumara sport known as rarahipari, which involves a wooden ball being kicked across a number of miles. I'm sorry, a ball made of wood? That has gotta take a toll on your feet, right? 12. The man who ran forever. Lactic acid is a literal pain for long-distance runners. However, there's one man who doesn't mind the stuff so much. That's Dean Karnazes from Los Angeles, who, since the 90s, has been competing in ultramarathons without feeling the burn. He has an extremely high tolerance for lactate, which is produced as glucose is converted into energy. Lactic acid fills his muscles but doesn't register in his pain receptors. This awesome ability enables Dean to take part in feats of endurance that would scare Schwarzenegger himself. He just runs and runs without needing sleep. Like in 2005 when he covered 350 miles in a little over 80 hours. He also ran 50 marathons in 50 states, finishing 1 marathon per day. An incredible achievement. 11. Oxygen Man. Humans can only have so much oxygen in their bloodstream before their health is affected. Well, most of us anyway. Eero Mantaranta, a cross-country skier from Finland, broke that rule, having approximately 50% more oxygen in his blood than a regular person. This made him a superhuman, who could last longer during Olympic events than his fellow competitors. How did he manage to do his thing, wowing the crowds during the 60s and 70s? He had a genetic mutation. Mantaranta's mutated blood affected the erythropoietin receptor, a protein that helps create red blood cells. His cell count was boosted, turning him into an aerobic powerhouse. He competed at the highest level for over a decade before passing away in 2013, having won an awe-inspiring 7 Olympic gold medals. 10. Printing error. Fingerprints are completely unique to each person. But what if someone doesn't have them? Apu Sarkar from Bangladesh is print-free due to a genetic condition called a dermatoglyphia. He doesn't have the usual features authorities need to establish someone's identity, which spelled trouble for him when national ID cards with biometric data were rolled out in India. All was not lost, however, because it is possible to verify people in other ways, through things like a retinal scan. Apu isn't alone in having the condition. In fact, his family also has it. A dermatoglyphia affects at least 4 generations of these Sarkars, and only 5 families in the whole world experience it. 9. Hellboy arm. How cool would it be if an arm wrestler had a huge right arm like Hellboy? German tough guy Matthias Schlitter makes that thought a reality. He was born in the late 80s with a condition called Klippel-Trenaunay syndrome, or KTS, which affects at least 1 in every 100,000 people. The super rare syndrome creates an unusual vein structure, plus, of course, it can make your arm grow. Matthias turned this to his advantage by training as an athlete. Imagine taking part in an arm wrestling contest and seeing this guy. Matthias started arm wrestling in his teens, where his cartoon-like proportions drew a lot of interest. 8. The Hungry Frenchman. Terrare wasn't just a hungry Frenchman, he was an eating machine, consuming epic amounts of food and even objects like stones over the course of his life. Born in 1772, he realized he was constantly craving food, which led him down a strange and dark path. Consuming enough food for 15 people in one go was crazy enough, but eating live cats? Yeah, any feline fans watching might want to cover your ears because there are stories he liked his meals raw and whiskery. I should say that these wild tales are not confirmed, which is a relief. There was also a practical use for his jumbo-sized appetite. While serving in the French army, Terrare was tasked with transporting important documents. There's no safer place to store classified information than in your stomach, apparently. He survived combat, but later died from tuberculosis, which brought on extreme diarrhea, at least according to unverified reports. What is it with the French and bizarre eating habits? Years later, Michel Lotito made a name for himself eating metal and glass, among other unlikely ingredients. He broke records doing this. Well, he probably ate them too. However, he wasn't as out there as Terrare. 7. Super eyesight. Here's a lady who doesn't need glasses. Veronica Sater's talents were highlighted when she was a student in Germany, and it's believed her sight was 20 times better than the average person's. So how does she do it? She was just born this way. So the answer to that question lies in her genetics. Veronica possesses a strong retina and enhanced visual processing overall, making her slightly unusual and someone that experts want to study. In 1972, she earned the Guinness World Record title for smallest visible object. Remember the old expression of seeing someone coming from a mile away? Yeah, Veronica could actually do that. 6. The Berlin patient. Timothy Ray Brown from the United States is probably better known to the world as the Berlin patient. He was treated for leukemia in 2007 at a German hospital where he underwent a bone marrow transplant that removed cancer from his blood. However, there was another and more remarkable side to the story. Timothy was also suffering with HIV, and the operation wiped that from his system too. This was a major breakthrough at the time, when irrational fears and misinformation about AIDS were rife. The procedure saw doctors transplanting stem cells from a donor with the genetic mutation CCR5 delta 32. This mutation battles the HIV virus, leading to a double whammy of medical treatment that saved Timothy's life. He became the first person to be cured of HIV. 5. The Pie Man. How good are you with numbers? When it comes to calculations, Akira Haraguchi of Japan has everybody beat. That's because he can recall thousands and thousands of numbers, filling his brain with digits of pi. What's pi? Well, it's the ratio of the circumference to the diameter for any circle. Approximately, it's 3.14159, but those decimals go on forever, never repeating. So you could say Akira has only memorized a small fraction of pi, which is by no means an insignificant feat, of course. Akira was born in the 40s and spent his life working as an engineer, where I imagine his skills with pi were pretty useful. He uses mnemonic techniques, where images and stories help him retain the masses of information in his head. He's also performed in front of audiences, dazzling them with his mighty math powers. Best of all, Akira is still alive today, though he is enjoying a well-earned retirement. 4. The female porters of Kilimanjaro. A group of women in Africa are making the ordinary extraordinary by assisting climbers on Mount Kilimanjaro. Why is that such a big deal? Well, Kilimanjaro isn't just the continent's tallest mountain, it's one overwhelmingly connected to male achievement. Individuals like Lucia Kivoi from Tanzania have been addressing this bias. She and others are taking the job of porters, people who carry equipment and supplies, literally taking the weight off people trying to reach the summit. The reasons behind them working on Kilimanjaro are both symbolic and practical. There's a financial side to the move, as the women can also earn money to support themselves and their families in tough times. The sight of a female porter or guide would be frowned upon in previous times, and the group are still challenging prejudice today. However, by routinely climbing the heights of around 6,000 meters, they're normalizing something which should have been considered normal years ago. 3. The artist who sees millions of colors. We know that there are a lot of colors in the world, but 100 million? Conchetta Antico from Australia has an edge over other artists due to her incredible ability of perceiving each and every one. She is capable of seeing 100 times more shades and tones than most people, a gift for any creative type. Conchetta is what's known as a tetrachromat, with an extra cone cell in her eyes that enhances her vision. Your cone cells use light wavelengths to pick out details such as coloring, and typically, we humans have 3. Not only can she see the world like few others, she can show us through her artwork. Tetrachromacy is predominantly found in women, and around 12% of the female population are estimated to have this talent. Do you? Let me know in the comments. 2. Master Navigator. Micronesian navigator Malpielo did things old school. He was trained in the art of traditional navigation, meaning he didn't rely on satellite navigation or any modern equipment. Referred to as wayfinding, the classic navigation techniques are lost to most people today. But Mao helped keep it alive. Beginning as a child in the 30s, he learned how to use the stars, birds, clouds, and movement of the ocean to get where he needed to go. This superpower enabled him to guide the crew of the Hokulea, a canoe, across a 2,500-mile stretch from Hawaii to Tahiti. The journey was very significant because it promoted the ancient Polynesian way of life to the world. Many think the Europeans ruled the waves, but the truth is other cultures were crossing vast distances long before the days of explorers finding and colonizing places. An expert navigator and also teacher, Mao passed away in 2010 on Satawal, the island of his birth, an appropriate final destination. 1. The woman who can remember everything. This is American author Jill Price, and she lives a life that's different to the majority of the people on planet Earth. She remembers in perfect detail everything that's ever happened to her since she was around 14. When she talked to doctors about her ability, it led to a fascinating diagnosis. In 2006, Jill became the first person ever to be identified with the condition hyperthymesia. Only around 100 others have been diagnosed since. Also known as HSAM, or highly superior autobiographical memory, this rare feat of memory acts like a movie camera in your brain. When someone says a particular date, you immediately recall what took place. Some of the memories can be pleasant, and others not, making the X-Men-like ability both a blessing and a curse. The life of a real X-Man or woman is incredible, but also stressful. They certainly put the adventures of Marvel's X-Men into perspective. However, there's also been tensions behind the scenes of the X-Men movies. Which actor was originally cast as Wolverine but had to drop out? Was it A, Daniel Craig, B, Michael Douglas, C, Daniel Day-Lewis, or D, Dougray Scott? Let us know your answers in the comments. And if you can't get enough of amazing superhumans, then you'll want to check out our video on 25 people with real superpowers. Don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe, and click that notification bell like I said before, and I'll see you soon for a whole new list.